I want to thank my colleagues who are sitting here before me, especially Senator Heinrich, who invited me to be a part of this dialogue today. And I stand right now just to express my frustration. We see on our television sets, we hear throughout the American landscape, rhetoric, posturing, and demagoguery that does not reflect the truth of who we are as a nation and obscures the facts of what's happening on our southern border right now as a country. We have thousands upon thousands of children in their most vulnerable and innocent stage of their lives showing up at our border. And I hear ugly rhetoric about just turning them around and sending them back. Rhetoric that does not reflect who we are as a nation, the history of our community, or the laws of this land. And if I may, for the brief time that I want to speak, just reflect on the fact of why these children are showing up. Why are they coming to our borders? Well, what my senior senator, who is here now, Senator Menendez, has said clearly, this is not a case of ordinary people seeking better economic opportunities. If this was just about poverty, then we would see people coming from all the nations in that area. To be more specific, El Salvador's poverty rate is 34.5%, where Belize's poverty rate is actually higher. It's 41.3%. To make a journey from a country with a lower poverty rate to a country with a higher poverty rate, because that is where many of these refugees are going, to Belize, begs a closer examination of the true drivers of this migration, because it is not poverty. It is not people simplistically looking for economic opportunity. We're seeing countries, in addition to America, facing the same problem. Children from these three nations escaping severe persecution, sexual assault, rape, violence, and murder, not just coming to the borders of the United States to escape this persecution, but going to other nations in that area. For example, combined Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Belize documented a 435% increase in the number of asylum applications logged by individuals from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. In this area of our nation, of our globe, where there is such violence and persecution in these three countries, it is driving people out, not just to the United States, or some people allege because of policy of the Obama administration. These are people escaping persecution to countries all in the region. This is about violence. This is about heinous crimes. This is about a drug war. This is about cartels carrying out the most egregious of human acts, evidencing the depravity and the evil that so cuts at the conscience of humanity that people are escaping to wherever they can go. We in the United States have a long and noble history that when there are places on our globe that face this level of crisis, we respond. And we are part of an international community where our peer nations have shown that history as well. Here in North America, we know our allies like Canada have done incredible things when there is crisis and violence and war and persecution, mass rapes going on, that there's been responses from our northern neighbor. In 1972, when Ugandan President Idi Amin announced the Ugandan Asians were to be expelled, Canada set up a refugee office. And by the end of 1973, more than 7,000 Ugandan Asians arrived in Canada. Germany, for example, right now, currently is accepting 20,000 Syrian refugees. As I speak right now, Jordan and Lebanon are host to over 2 million Syrian refugees, and we as a nation are encouraging our allies in the Middle East to be there for those refugees when they come to our border. That is the international community. In America, we set the standard. We are the leaders globally for compassion, for humanity, for charity. And I am proud that this tradition, which is 2 centuries old in America, continued under Democrats and Republicans. It has not been a partisan football. In 2008, under the Bush administration, in the face of Burma's humanitarian crisis, this country, with the courage of its compassion, rose up and resettled thousands of Burmese refugees, admitting as many as 18,000 of them. President Bush signed the legislation to ease the restrictions that prevented ethnic minorities involved in that struggle against the Burmese regime, eased restrictions from them entering the United States. President Bush spoke eloquently during that time about American compassion, spoke about American heritage and American tradition. He said quite pointedly, "I thank those of you Americans and those around the country, all of us who have opened up our arms and said, 'Welcome to America. How can we help you settle in?'" This is who we are as a nation. And when we have children, innocents, escaping violence and terror and crimes against humanity, where we as a nation are not even fully relieved of culpability for what is going on. When the drugs that our nation consumes is helping to drive that violence, we have a responsibility. That is who we are. That is our truth. We know this. We are a nation of people who came from persecution, who came from famine, who came from religious wars. We are a nation settled by those who are yearning to be free. Now, I know the Statue of Liberty well because New Jersey has its back. When I travel around the state, I often get a great view of her noble torch. And I know that it's not down along our southern border, but the ideals of the Statue of Liberty still hold true. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I am grateful and support Senator Mikulski's leadership and the push to address this crisis by stepping up as a nation, by following the letter of the law and providing due process for those young people that have come to our border so that we can evaluate them and see those who have a justifiable claim for asylum, to see that we honor our tradition and our law and give them a place in our country that is safe and secure from the terror and the violence that is going on in those 3 countries. It cannot be acceptable that we use our resources now simply to expedite the return of thousands of children into that conflict zone that is more dangerous now than at the height of civilian dangers at the Iraq War. We must, as Americans, follow that great tradition. We must, as Americans now, do the right thing by innocent children, evaluate them with our resources, expedite the judicial process to understand clearly who is meritorious of asylum. And we should invest our resources in making sure the conflicts in those nations are abated so that this crisis ends. Mr. President, I say clearly, America, we stand for something. Now, as we have time and time again, we must garner our resources, and most importantly, our compassion and the truth of who we say we are, and make sure we take care of these vulnerable children, and make sure we don't turn them around into a dangerous situation. It is time that we show internationally that when there is crisis, America stands up and shows leadership and does the right thing.